Okay, so good morning.
Good morning.
This is a very exciting weekend. So a lot of controversy has come up about yoga in the last week, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody has read these articles that have come out, but some of you have them printed out. I feel like it's really crucial, it's really important that we discuss it as part of the teacher training because it's an amazing conversation to have. And a lot of the stuff, not only in the original article, but then in Glenn Black's rebuttal to the article and in his good teacher, Jill Miller. You guys know Jill, she'll be here next month. In her response, in the Iyengar Association's response, in all these different responses, there have been some really key insights into why we're here as yoga teachers, into why you guys are here learning, and how we can safely transition from being a student of yoga into a teacher of yoga. Glenn says in his rebuttal is that yoga is really young. The physical form of yoga is still so young in its approach that we're still processing, and will be processing for many years, how to make it beneficial for everybody. And it's fair in the beginning to say, you know what, my father taught me this, or my mother taught me this, and it doesn't work. Haven't you had this experience emotionally? Or in some kind of habit pattern? My father and my mother taught me this, and it's not something I'd like to keep. It's something I love, but I want to change. So we talk about these changes. Should we consider more stabilizing exercises in our yoga practice? Absolutely. Absolutely. If we're going to open up the chest, we need to stabilize by strengthening the muscles in the backs of the shoulders, right? If we want the fronts of the hips to come out of this seated posture, car posture, this chair pose posture, then we have to open the quads. And if we open the quads, we have to tighten the back of the hips just a little bit, right? We need some gluteal tightening to balance that out. So strength and flexibility. If we were going to add two more pieces to what I would see as the ideal world of holistic yoga, it would be that everybody gets body work, right? Everybody gets some form of deep tissue massage to free the body, and nutrition. So we have this physical therapy or personal training aspect, we have the stretch aspect, we have body work, and we have nutrition. Those four things all together would make like a yoga school, or perhaps a holistic body health school. And it would take 2 to 4 years. And that's something that I feel like is coming down the line. Very exciting that these things are coming for us in the future. Do we agree that poses like shoulder stand, headstand, Setu Bandhasan, do you guys know Setu Bandhasan?
Yeah.
From Ashtanga, you lay on the floor and you arc up so that you're balanced on the top of your head and your feet. These poses are not safe for the body. We've talked about it a lot. Why would you jump onto your head? Why would you put your full body weight on your head? You can get an inversion just by putting your legs up the wall. Oh, so nice, right? You get an inversion at home by putting your feet up on the couch. Oh, so much better than a headstand, right? There's no reason to force your body to do those kind of poses. And for so many people, they're not strong enough in the cervical spine. This is valid. These are valid points that are brought up in the article. He mentions things like whiplash and problems swallowing. Well, there's a pose, it's called Viparita Shalabhasana, where you lay on your belly and you lift your legs up into the air. Your arms are underneath you. Have you guys seen this one?
Yes.
It's a little bit crazy. But anyway, you lay on your belly and you lift up and you're balanced on the front of the throat. And that just doesn't make any sense. Your voice box is there. So as yoga instructors, we say there's an easier way to open the chest or to gently stretch the front of the neck. And it could be as simple as just lifting up and looking at the ceiling. Oh, nice. We want yoga to be approachable for everybody. And we want to start with this kind of general pose that everyone can work with and do no harm, right? The law of ahimsa. Next. The man who sat in Vajrasan for 4 hours in meditation. Who told him to do that, right? None of us are going to sit in Vajrasan, right? Where you're up on your heels like this for 4 hours. And if we are, sure, you can expect that you'll have to move very carefully because your knees may be, I don't even want to know what, after 4 hours, right? Same thing with lotus pose. Same thing with anything you do for 4 hours. They mentioned that the sciatic nerve was getting blocked. Of course it is. If you work at the office for 8 hours and you sit at your desk for 8 hours, you stand up and your sciatic nerve has been blocked and your lower back hurts a little bit. right? The assumption of risk is in your office work as well as your yoga. Don't do anything for 4 hours continuously. And then this idea of twisting the neck. So if you have someone that comes into your classes and they're in this forward folding posture, right? Their abs are too tight, the front of their chest is too tight, and you ask them to turn their neck in something like triangle pose and look at the ceiling. They already have a big curve in their neck. Like a slinky, if you curve it and then twist it, it bulges. You have to find a way to get their spine back to upright before they can freely turn their head. So if we take the turn from the heart instead of from the chin or from the eyes, it's a much safer practice. And both Glenn will say this, and also I've heard Anna Forrest say this, that if you relax your head, let your head drop when you're trying to come up into a crow pose. Let your head look at the floor when you're in a pose like side angle or triangle pose, so that you're not straining in your neck. It just makes sense. If we can make yoga make sense, we'll make huge progress along this path. So this was the first article, which I think was a little bit tongue-in-cheek and incorporated a lot of kind of injury, I would call it flair, injury gossip. Like this person blew out 10 ribs and this person, their eye popped out of their head. But it's too much, right? And there's a kinder way to address this. However, if this was just a nice article on yoga, it wouldn't have got this kind of response. So it really went over the edge, and I have to thank William Broad for going over the edge, because he made the entire society of yogis and students of yoga think about it. The response that came back from Chris Beach from the Iyengar Association was really nice. And I'm going to read to you the beginning of the response and then where Iyengar started. Because I think a lot of us don't understand that Iyengar, in his 90s, still practicing yoga, came from a very hard background. He was not physically fit. He was not in good shape when he started yoga and had a transformative experience. This is Chris's article. And he says, if yoga hurts, it's not yoga. A student's overreaching ego, a teacher's ignorance, may be causes that lead to injury while doing this practice, but yoga itself cannot be blamed. And Chris closes his article by saying, before undertaking the practice of asana, those who pursue the 8-limbed path of yoga must first practice the guidelines of yama and niyama. Right? We can't forget that. It's not just a physical practice. It's how do we balance, strengthen, and open ourselves up in our outside life as well. How do we take good care of ourselves as we go about our daily living, just as we take care of ourselves while we are on our mats. First among these is ahimsa, non-violence. And for a yoga teacher, this means to do no harm. And I would extend that from do no harm physically to also do no harm mentally. Not to yourself and not to other people. So that when we respond to situations like this, we don't respond with anger or fear, but we respond with compassion, excitement, and a communal conversation. Because that's what we're really passionate about. It's what comes next. So I want to end our discussion today with Glenn's response. His response to this article is actually fantastic and spot on in so many ways. So he starts off with a quote, and his quote is, "It's important to acknowledge the true damage on all levels that yoga can do when the ego surpasses awareness." Right? When the ego surpasses awareness and wisdom. When asana and goals trump deeply listening to the body. When yoga styles and methods are uncompromising. And when inexperienced or misguided yoga teachers lead bodies living modern lifestyles into places they are not yet prepared to go. This is valid. So when I teach my children's class on Fridays, they're all teenagers, and they say, "Hey, do a split, put your foot behind your head." And I go, "No way, I'm not warmed up yet." So we have this moment where the ego says, "Sure, I want to show off and make you like me." But then there's this much smarter moment that says, "You know what, I can teach them now to start taking care of their bodies," which is that we don't do those things without preparing first. And the preparation will set up stability. Let's take a look. How many people feel like chaturanga is really hard on the shoulders? Right? This low push-up position where the shoulders round down. And sometimes we even feel a strain across the front of the shoulders. Absolutely. Repetitive stress injury from chaturanga. I can see that. Can we agree that we should take that out? Not as a pose completely, but as a repetition. That's probably not the best of things to repeat over and over again in a class. How about things like deep knee flexion? He says that in deep knee flexion, the knee twists. Look at a pose like this, right? This is so much pressure on just this knee, and if I were to try to stand up from here, the torsion through that knee would be way too much. There's a safer way to work your knees. You can work with both legs together, the beginning of chair pose, shifting the weight back into the center of the knee. So can we agree that he's right, that deep knee flexion could be damaging? Especially if you already have a tear in it. Can you imagine bearing weight on a slightly torn piece of, let's say it's fabric? You wouldn't sit on a swing that has a rip across the middle. You can't do that to your knees either. He mentions headstand, shoulder stand, and plow. Right? And I, for myself, have experienced in headstand and in shoulder stand whiplash-like symptoms. Right? In the beginning, they would tell you, hey, let's stay in shoulder stand for 10 minutes. It's too much. You've never done it before, you're going to go into it for 10 minutes. That's like telling somebody to eat 5 plates of broccoli. A little bit of broccoli, yummy. 5 plates of broccoli, damage. Right? So, yoga's the same way. You just want to do a little bit of these poses and a gentle version in the beginning to start to loosen up your body. He says, let the neck relax. We all agree with that one, to let the neck relax. The instruction is to be careful and to listen to yourself. Perfect. Put that on a bumper sticker. Drive it around both New York and Boston. It would help everyone. Be careful and listen to yourself. The interviewer brings up the pose Warrior One. Right? Haven't we discussed Warrior One as a slightly strange position where the back leg is turned out to the side and the back knee can bow down towards the floor? So what's our alternative pose? Yeah. Crescent lunge. So we lift the back heel up so the leg is in the normal line approaching a walking gait. Perfect. He rightly states that yoga in its physical form is still very young. That the physical form of yoga is maybe 90, 100 years old. It's not very old. Before that it was meditation practices, pranayama cleansing practices, which too are evolving. He mentions remedial exercises to stabilize and body work. This is my dream, is that all yoga teachers start to incorporate remedial stabilization exercises and body work. Unfortunately, we can't all afford to get body work every day. But if we look at Olympic athletes, many of them say the secret to their success, bless you, was to get 2 massages a week during training. And we have some great masseuses here. It's an exciting thing when you realize that you can combine, bless you, forces to make a better practice. So now it's our job as the next generation. It's not even on me anymore. You guys, it's on you. You're the next generation. You're going to graduate in a few months. You're the ones that are going to make the difference. It's our job to examine the beliefs of the people that have come before us, to add their beliefs to ours, and to expand and evolve the practice. You guys agree?
Yes.
So I'd like to open it up now if you guys have questions, or if there was something that you read and you want to mention it about these articles. But I also want to state that I'm fully in support of everybody that both wrote and responded to these. It's freedom of speech. Everyone has a right to voice their opinion, and then we have a right to progressively change the world. Right? So let's do it.